up? Hello, I hope you all are doing well. Given that we are significantly now into October, this seems like a great time to revisit all of the books that I read in quarter 3 of 2020, which would have been in July, August, and September. Now, given that I had to take a little bit of time away from this and also from reading this year, there aren't nearly as many in this quarter that I would have liked. I didn't read as much as I would have cared to. But I did get through a number of children's books from my past and also some just unusual selections. Maybe a sign that my reading taste is changing, or also that I'm just not into really heady literary fiction at this point in time, as I may have been in simpler times of life. So let's get started. The first book that I read was actually an audiobook that I listened to because sometimes I like to have what I think of as like a mindless audiobook in the background. And so I chose Paula Quinn's The Scandalous Secret of Abigail McGregor. This is a Highland romance book, and not one that I was really intending to get so into. I saw that it came up on the Libby app as available at my library consortium and was like, you know what, I've lived in Scotland, let's see what this is about. Let's see how Highlanders in very long ages and times ago are portrayed to a current audience. And it was interesting. It had all of the makings of what I'm sure is a good romance novel. I'm not an expert on it myself or the way that those are meant to be put together, but there were of course some classic Highlander English tensions, and I would very much assume that those still exist today. Scottish English tensions are very much still a real thing, but this had sort of an engaging plot. Abigail McGregor goes in her mother's stead to make a stand in the court of the Queen, and there's a ruse and everything, and she is conveyed there by a man named Daniel Marlowe, and he of course, winds up having to interact with her more than he expected to, and it continues from there. A little bit of forbiddenness to it, a lot of hemming and hawing around the point, and a lot of obfuscation of individuals' feelings. And I've come to realize recently, and I'll talk about this probably more in my quarter 4 wrap-up, but the fact that romance novels center so heavily on people just not telling each other how they feel, which I understand makes the whole point of the plot is to drag it on and to deal with that inner turmoil, a lot of which is probably very true to life, but the whole bit about people not being upfront and not saying how they feel to each other drives me batty. I spend like a good third of these type of books being very frustrated that people can't just say things. But I guess that's what makes for a good story. I guess if they said everything right up front, the book would be about only half as long and probably not as engaging and probably not keep a reader interested. So it was an interesting little romp. It was nice to have it in the background. This feels it's like that's very punitive language, and I know the whole romance genre is working to overcome this negative stereotype, so I apologize for using that type of language. But this was nice to have on in the background while I've been doing a lot of collage making, a lot of art making. So yeah, it was kind of fun. So the next book is American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin by Terence Hayes. And this is a collection of 70 poems that were written by Terence Hayes, obviously, in the first 200 days of the Trump presidency here in the United States. And they touch on race, what assassin means, and love, all kinds of things. They range from being funny to really poignant, to very thoughtful, all kinds of stuff. They're all titled with the same title, which is the same title as the book. So each poem is called American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin, which is fascinating to read. It's totally the kind of thing that I'm super into. If you saw my trust exercise review, how every chapter of the book was called trust exercise, this is totally my thing. So this is a very thoughtful collection. I think I just said that, and I almost don't want to say too much about it because it's one of those things that it feels very personal to read, and I think has a lot of feelings based on what you know about the society in which Americans live that might be brought up for an individual. I'll note that the author is also a National Book Award winner, so this is a great collection If you want to read it all in one sitting, which is what I did, I feel like it probably gives it a different view or impact than it might if you pick it up and put it down and pick it up again across a longer period of time. So a nice short compendium, again, only 70 poems, would definitely recommend. It was shortly after that that I watched Beck's video about her favorite childhood reads, and in that she mentions Trial by Journal by Kate Kleiss, which happens to be one of my favorite children's books of all time. And so when she said that, I said to myself, you know, I should read that again. So very fortunately, my library consortium searched far and wide, and from all the way across the state brought me a copy of Trial by Journal, which is told in letters and all kinds of other types of material, dry cleaning tags and ticket stubs and pictures. So Kate Kleiss is the author and her sister is the illustrator, and so together they put together these beautiful books, which are very detailed and very sort of challenging to read because you want to look at everything on the page and read every word. Even the newspaper clippings, you want to read the advertisements because somehow they're all drawn together. Everything sort of is very cute. These are definitely middle grade books, and so I remember reading them as a kid and they were wonderful then. Well, now it's about a girl named Lily who is the first child juror on a case in her county for a case involving the death of another child. So she is called to serve on a sequestered jury and winds up having to do a little bit of detective work, and it's all played out in this compendium of documents, which is really lovely. But the Kleiss sisters also have additional books, and one of my other favorites as a child was Letters from Camp, which is much shorter and is indeed a collection of letters from camp. It's about these kids who are sent to this summer camp, which is not at all what it seems. It's a camp that's meant to bring sisters and brothers who don't get along well together, and it's run by this like old washed up set of 6 siblings who all seem to think that they can change these kids' ways with very irritating and very like gender specific roles and classes, and these kids wind up doing a lot of work on this beautiful property and also uncovering a secret plot, which is rather nefarious. Most of Kate Kleiss's books wind up being a plot where kids are the ones uncovering a dangerous plot that the adults have put into play. All of the characters' names in all of the books are related to their personalities somehow, and they tend to be either alliterative or puns or something like that. So it does kind of get a little bit old if you read a lot of her books in one sitting, but they're obviously not aimed at a target adult audience. And the last Kate Kleiss book I read, these just keep getting smaller, started with the most hefty and worked my way backward, is regarding The Fountain, a tale in letters of liars and leaks. And this is about a group of students who really advocates for a water fountain designer to come and design a beautiful fountain at their middle school, and in the process uncovers a secret plot that the adults have put into play. Wouldn't you know? This book is very, very short. It's lovely, and there's a series, I think, with these characters, or along. There's regarding the fountain, regarding the sink, a lot of water-themed type of books there. Again, if you're looking for an early 2000s, maybe late 90s middle grade book, I'd recommend these. So what's that? 5 books so far? The last one then in the third quarter is Well Met by Jen DeLuca, and I heard about this book. This is a contemporary romance book, which I heard about from Olive, from a book Olive, and if she says something is good, I'm inclined to trust her, and she was not wrong. This is a very lovely, cute contemporary romance about these 2 characters who wind up working at a Renaissance fair and meet, and how that aspect of their lives either brings them together or draws them apart. And it's about this young woman, like mid-20s, sort of coming to terms with what her life is after it being pulled apart a little bit. And it was really lovely. I read it twice, because the first time I read it in a day or two and felt really strongly about it, thought it was great, and was like, Well, hold on. Let me read it again. So I read it again and I didn't like it as much the second time. There were more pieces of the dialogue that I thought could have been better. I think one of my main issues with romance novels in general is that people address each other by name more often than I feel like is legitimate for real life. People are always saying the other character's name when they speak to them, and that just makes it feel unrealistic to me because I did not grow up in a culture where people use each other's names when they address them all that often. That might just be me, but that happens a lot in this book, which I was made very uncomfortable by. Like, people don't say Emily nearly as much in conversation when they're talking to someone called Emily, as I think the prose suggests. So that was my little irksome moment with that. But the characters were very interesting. I'm keen to read the next book, which I believe is Well Played, because that will take place in the same setting with characters that were auxiliary in this book and will become front and center this next time around. So waiting on that from my library holds list. If this sounds kind of like your thing, I thought it was going to be good because it was a little bit old-timey because of the Renaissance Fair, but also very current. And it indeed was. If you like a small town, the fact that they're in a small town is not left up to the imagination. In fact, it's on nearly every page. Someone's always talking about the fact that they're in a small town in this book, or damning the fact that they live in a small town. Either way, you are hit over the head with the fact that they are in a small town. So, if that sounds like your thing, very cute, lovely, contemporary romance, well met. Give it a go. And those are the books that I read in the third quarter of this year. I will be reading, and I can tell you that I'll be reading them because I already have read them, several more contemporary romances, because apparently once you get going, you just have to critique all of the ones that your friends tell you about, and that's what I've been up to in October so far. So prepare for those coming up later on. I'll also be getting to my last two books from our Shelf Sisters series, and the one that I know Rebecca wants me to read the most won't be coming until December, so that will be fun too. If you've got any suggestions for what I should read in the fourth quarter that I absolutely may have missed from talking about it earlier this year, please let me know in the comments. All that being said, thank you so much for watching. Anything that you want to know about us is in the description. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and we will see you very soon. Oh boy, these read is extremely bright on camera.